Hello. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, turning a page difficult or impossible. The content of today is copyrighted by the respective publishers, so for more information, please visit us on the website at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for the 9th day of February. Your readers today are Tom Travers and
Tom Scanlon.
I suspect a lot of you have heard about the Guthrie disappearance, and this first article is on Guthrie's neighbors feeling her presence, her absence. Her Arizona committee worries, and the search goes on. This is an article by Chris Kenning and Jay Stahl, written for USA Today. Nancy Guthrie's presence was missing last week inside the sandstone-colored walls of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Tucson, where she was a devout congregant. She was missing in the city's eclectic downtown at El Shadow Cafe, a favorite of the 84-year-old who sat there with her famous daughter Savannah Guthrie on a visit last year. Days after the morning show, Mom was allegedly abducted on January 31st from her sprawling home in the region's affluent Catalina foothills. She was missing there, too, as investigators revised and revisited the home. People attend a vigil at St. Philip's in the Hills Episcopal Church in Tucson, Arizona, days after Nancy Guthrie disappeared. But her place in the community was fully present on February 4th as anguished residents and supporters flocked to a nearby church framed by the scenic Santa Catalina Mountains for a vigil to pray for her safe return. We quote, "We pray for our sister Nancy. Guide her, comfort and sustain her in this moment of need," a service leader said in prayer as attendees clutched candles at the vigil. Her baffling disappearance has gripped the nation, leading many Americans to question how an octogenarian leading a sleepy life in the Southwest was taken while her neighbors were asleep, and why, since her disappearance, investigators have struggled to come up with the answers to why. And whether she'd be found before going too long without her vital daily that remains to be seen. My mom still lives there. Nearly 3 months before her mom vanished, today's show, main anchor Savannah Guthrie kicked off a new segment, Hometown Today, on NBC's marquee morning program on November 5th. The aim of the show was to give viewers a behind-the-scenes look of where the series' beloved anchors had grown up. Savannah, we're going to start with you, co-host Carson Daly said from the show's curvy couch. You took us back to your old stomping grounds, surrounded by her Today family. Guthrie said that she traveled back for an Arizona homecoming. I grew up there, went to college there, my mom still lives there, and honestly, a part of me has really never left. Guthrie, who's 55 years old, told viewers in a jean jacket and black dress, she walked through prickly pear cactus fields, even pausing to poke the thorny planks. She introduced herself and viewers to local muralist Jose Joe Pacac and Carthley. Guthrie went back to her alma mater, the University of Arizona, greeting everyone, and then she sat down for lunch, and the trio shared margaritas and caught up with executive. But we're just praying, she said. Back on February 4th, a dozen patrons stood in line at the same location, run by Flores since 1972. Everyone has their own opinions about what happened, but when it comes right down to it, this is a lady who is missing, Flores told her. The New York Post. It's their mother who's missing. That was felt all over the community, including St. Andrews, where the pastor was prepping to attend the vigil, and staff were struggling and juggling nonstop causes. It was at her church that fellow churchgoer called Nancy Guthrie's family in February after she failed to attend service there. Her home is about 12 minutes away. Her children left her off at her home around 9:45, January 31st, according to Pima County Sheriff Chris Nails. Then the apparent abduction. We're just praying, a staffer said at St. Andrews and told USA Today. Not far away outside the Guthrie home around 5 p.m., neighbors Chris Wilkie said the move by investigators to return to the home only deepened the mystery. As soon as the sun goes down, everybody gets home. Late in the afternoon of February 4th, there was what appeared to be renewed law enforcement interest in the home. Crime scene tape was placed along the front of the residence. Investigators, one of whom were a Pima County Sheriff's Deputy Vesk, took equipment out of the plastic bins in a truck. They entered the garage, and when they left, they carried at least one box in large brown envelopes. The crime scene tape went down again after the investigators left. The sought-after neighborhood has stucco homes and acre plots. There are landscaped with rock and cactuses, black mark mesquite, and Powell Verde trees line the yards. Wilkie, 50 years old, said the area gets very dark at night and lacks streetlights, likely keeping obscure whatever transpired and making the case hard to crack. As the days tick by without any suspects, unknowns have put the neighborhood on edge. And the article goes on, mother and daughter spend time together and they reminisce about Tucson. It's so wonderful, just the air, the quality of life is laid back and gentle. Nancy Guthrie said this, quote, I like to watch the javelina eat my plants, she added to laughs from her daughters. The best part about Tucson is coming home and seeing you guys, Savannah Guthrie told her mom and sister. They clicked their margs, and the show shifted back to the couch in the studio. Savannah Guthrie surprised her 4 Today co-stars with tequila and teacups gifted from the Flores and El Charro. Please reach out to us, says the article in bold print. Family pleads at the news conference. At 6 p.m. on February 4th, as the sun was dipping behind mountains, several hundred residents streamed into St. Philip's on the Hills Episcopal Church. They were there for candlelight invocation and a prayer service. So far, the Pima County Sheriff's Department has not identified any suspects. While many in town speculated, few had answers. February 4th marked 3 months since the Today segment from Tucson aired. Quote, from the love of family to the familiar beauty of the scenery, I will always be a daughter of the desert, Savannah Guthrie said. And the last couple of short paragraphs, we need to know without a doubt that she's alive and that you have her, whoever you are, she said to the camera. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please, please reach out to us. She held the statement in her hands as night fell. Another day without her mother would soon begin.
This next article is titled Gulf of America. A year later, many locals still not on board. On the bridge of their charter boat, High Class Hooker, Susanna Pope and her husband can look out at the sparkling 65-degree saltwater off Key West, Florida, and envision customers fishing for marlin, wahoo, and mahi-mahi. Where will they take the tourists today? What fish will be biting? Will the blue skies and calm seas hold? What the heck should they be calling the water they're fishing in? A year ago, President Donald Trump's edict to rename the Gulf of Mexico formally took effect, and the United States abruptly, legally anyway, began referring to it as the Gulf of America. But old habits do indeed die hard. An USA Today Network survey of communities along the coastline from Florida's Key West, Destin, and Panama City to Dulac, Louisiana, and Corpus Christi, Texas, found there's little agreement about what exactly people are calling the body of water they live next to. In many cases, locals just call it the same thing they always called it. Down here, we just refer to as the Gulf, Susanna Pope, age 44, said. It's like saying you're going into town. You don't have to say Key West, you just say town. In Corpus Christi, a vacationing Jeremiah Orta, age 22, said he's only heard people who are being edgy online using the new name. I don't think in real life I've ever heard anyone say Gulf of America. All these coastal communities are home to some of Trump's strongest supporters. Few people said they simply fell in line behind the president's declaration. Many locals interviewed by the USA Today Network declined to speak publicly, citing concerns about potential political retribution if they are quoted picking one name over the other. Place naming experts say it's common for new names to take a long time to stick, particularly if the renaming was done abruptly and without public discussion. In Sarasota County, Florida, Luann Wood, who's been living on the Gulf for the past 41 years, said she sticks to tradition. As someone in the real estate industry, most of the people that want to move here are older. It can get confusing to call it anything other than what they've heard their whole lives, the Gulf of Mexico. She said, everyone in my life and almost everyone I know calls it the Gulf of Mexico. That's the only name for it. On Marco Island in Florida, Michigan tourist Annette Myers collected shells from what she called the Gulf of Mexico. It's always going to be the Gulf of Mexico to me, she said. In Dulac, shrimp boat captain Jared Thero said he's not inclined to consider using the new name. More important to him, he said, was quickly unload the 318100 pound boxes of frozen shrimp so he could get back onto the water while the fishing remained good. I really don't give an F what they call it, he said. It's always been the Gulf of Mexico to me. In Destin, realtor Marianne Windays said most people just say the Gulf. But for her husband's charter fishing boat Sunrise, most definitely the Gulf of America. We got the Gulf of America flag flying on our boat, Windy said, and they wear Gulf of America t-shirts. It's absolutely the Gulf of America. Company's Facebook page, however, advertises charter fishing trips on the Gulf of Mexico. In Panama City, Florida, Iowa tourist Jim Nelson said it's the Gulf of America as far as he's concerned. Trump changed the name, and Nelson feels it's justified. There's a lot more coastline or beach line for the United States than there is for Mexico, Neeson said. Well, why change the name? In renaming the Gulf, Trump said the new name would better reflect the body of water's important role in fishing, shipping, and oil and gas extraction. Supporters of the change say they hoped it would bring new attention to the important body of water. But critics noted that Trump's decision had more than a whiff of colonial imperialism, where white conquerors renamed places to reflect their worldview and minimized those of people who called it something else. As my administration restores American pride in the history of American greatness It's fitting and appropriate for our great nation to come together, commemorate this momentous occasion and the renaming of the Gulf of America, Trump said in declaring February 9th of 2025 as Gulf America Day. Piloting a boat running supplies to an under-construction bridge at the south end of Fort Myers Beach, Mike Popeye Dearden said he not only does the name change make sense, but it's part of human tendency to change geographical names throughout history. He says he thinks opposition to the change comes from people disliking Trump, not the name itself. Did you know the Gulf has enjoyed 9 official names in its history? Gulf of Mexico may be the longest, but it's had 9 in history. They changed the maps and get over it, self-described history buff and trivia geek said. William Shakespeare said, "What's in a name?" First, he said it was early shot at Mexico, a long-time Trump target. Second, Trump has long understood the power of branding and how names shape perception. Third, it allows the president to set out very early in his term, kind of muscular, go-it-alone approach we've seen unfold over the past year. The president recognized the power of names and the power of brands. It's intended that a geopolitical sense applied to some of the same logic to the geopolitical realm, he said. Not simply changing the name, it's actually enacting a different worldview, said we're going to be signaling a nationalistic, almost imperialistic way. America's absolutely first, and it's all about American interests. For generations, American borders have remained unchanged, but Trump has said he wants to expand the country's boundaries. Naming and claiming the Gulf was a step in that process, Alderman said. When you rename the Gulf, you're talking about extended territory in a symbolic sense, he said. The idea is you simply, in a unilateral way, rename the place, claim it. That's a pretty old process. It's been going on since the days of colonizations. And lastly, aboard the Louisiana-based shrimp boat Ensign, Captain Easton Rodriguez said there's no matter what people call the Gulf, just wishes Americans would buy from shrimpers like him instead of buying cheap imported shrimp, often farmed under unhealthy and dangerous conditions internationally. They have the guys who call it the Gulf of America, but it's not changing nothing because they still buy imports, he said.
This next article is another article about a family discovering the truth of what happened to their mother. In this case, it's a son. The article says, Dad discovers the truth of jailed son's death. 5 years later, he learns it was not what officials had said. Picture of the dad, pensive. Quote, "My son left this life in agony," James Brown said. "Just because you arrested someone doesn't give you the right to watch them die. I'm still shocked that a cover-up like this is possible." Compton, California. The man in the suit arrived in an unmarked car on a spring morning in 2020 with the worst news James Brown had ever heard. His 30-year-old son, Jamal, was dead. Brown hadn't heard from him in the days since he was detained on a parole violation. The man, a Los Angeles County deputy, sent to notify Brown for the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. He would only say that Jamal had been found unresponsive in a jail cell. Quote, "It hit me like a hammer," Brown, who is 77 years old, said recently. "How did he just die?" For 5 years, as detainee after detainee died in the custody of Riverside Sheriff Chad Bianco's jails. Brown kept asking that question, how? Finally, in 2025, with the help of a reporter from the Desert Sun, a member of the USA Today network, Brown began turning up answers. First came the official answer in a report released from Bianco's coroner's office. Jamal had refused treatment, according to the article, for his diabetes for days, so says the report. He died from diabetic complications after or during a methamphetamine. He died on an overdose. James Brown holds up an old school photo of his son, Jamal Brown, at his home in Compton, California. Jamal Brown died in a county jail in 2020 from complications of type 1 diabetes after going without needed insulin for roughly 2 days. But a trove of unreleased jailhouse video and detailed internal investigative reports that current and former sheriff's employees provided to Brown and the Desert Sun, they told a different story. Those reports confirm that Jamal died of diabetic complications, but they indicate it wasn't because he was rejecting medical aid. The records and videos say deputies and nurses ignored Jamal and failed to provide insulin to him for nearly 2 days. The jail's cameras recorded him saying he was afraid he was dying. They recorded him slipping into a coma in a pile of trash on the floor of his 2-man cell. They recorded deputies and nurses looking at him while he lay unconscious, but not intervening. The report said investigators found no drugs or evidence of drugs in the cell after his death. And there's a picture, an overhead picture of the cell, and it's small and forlorn looking. It says video footage from 4 a.m. in the morning on March 15th, 2020 shows Jamal Brown in his Riverside County jail cell. He pleaded with his cellmate for help. "Tell him I'm dying, Celly, please. Tell him I'm diabetic." Just over 24 hours later, he was found by a deputy and a nurse, not breathing. Investigators had collected evidence of the staff's failures within hours of Jamal Brown's death, the documents indicated. But for 5 years, no one told Mr. Brown. Sheriff Shad Bianco and the department's media team did not respond to requests for comment, including detailed questions about the findings reported in this story, including those in a 6-page administrative review that detailed deputies' failings in Jamal Brown's death. Jamal Brown, says the sheriff's department, has been hiding the truth about his son's death. "My son left his life in agony," he has said. "Just because you arrested someone doesn't give you the right to watch them die. I'm still shocked that a cover-up like this is possible." And so he goes on to talk about the pain of living without a son. James Brown served as a military policeman in the Marine Corps and as president of the union that represents workers at the Compton Municipal Water Department, where he worked for about 30 years. In a pile of Father's Day cards he keeps beside his favorite recliner in his Compton home is one of Jamal wrote to him in 2018. "Being a father is more than just paying bills and putting food on the table. Once you have the responsibility, you are obligated to help nurture, guide, and be a willing participant in every aspect of a child's life. And you've been all that plus more for me." Jamal concluded the greeting card message saying he couldn't imagine life without his father. 2 years later, Brown faced the pain of living without his son. Jamal had been arrested several times while growing up in Compton, a city just south of Los Angeles, and he had completed a prison sentence for assault. His father said he was laboring to get his life back on track while living in a tough neighborhood that could easily derail him. In spring of 2020, Jamal traveled about 65 miles east to Moreno Valley, which is a large suburb in Riverside County. He went there to be near a woman he was dating. His father was not confident Jamal had a steady place to stay, and he wasn't surprised when he got a call from him. Jamal asked if his dad could send him some more money so he could get back to Compton to meet with his parole officer. Later that evening, Brown heard his wife pick up the phone. Jamal had been arrested, and he asked if he wanted to talk to him. Frustrated, Brown declined, assuming his son would be released in a couple of days. A police report showed that a deputy patrolling a shopping center saw a man pushing a shopping cart with a suitcase in it. The deputy asked him if he was on probation or parole. Parole, Jamal told him. The deputy searched Jamal and his belongings, finding insulin in his luggage and 2 ecstasy pills in his pocket. Quote, "During my entire interaction with Brown, I did not notice any unusual behavior," the deputy wrote. "I instructed him to tell the nurse at the jail he was diabetic and insulin dependent. Brown stated he understood and would tell the staff." Deaths in custody surge. About 2 years after Jamal Brown died, deaths in custody began to surge in Bianco's department. There were 19 in 2022 alone. An investigation by the Desert Sun and the New York Times video and internal reports found that deputies had ignored detainees while leading up to their deaths by suicide. The county's jails also had the highest rate of homicide in the state. At one facility, 3 people were killed by other detainees in a matter of 4 months. Evidence gathered by department investigators showed that deputies at the jail had not been properly trained to do mandatory security checks. They said there were videos and internal reports of Jamal Brown's death recently leaked to James Brown and the Desert Sun, providing the earliest evidence of the same deputy failures and policy violations. Internal documents show the jail's medical staff recorded that Jamal Brown was diabetic, insulin dependent, and required blood sugar monitoring. When he was booked, he did not appear under the influence, and he answered questions coherently, although he mentioned he suspected he might have a mental illness and was noted as a detainee who required extra monitoring. He was then transferred to the county's jail in Banning, and he was placed in a cell with the camera constantly rolling. Internal records show that soon after Jamal Brown was taken to the hospital in cardiac arrest, the department's investigators began processing about 3 days of video evidence that captured him losing consciousness as his blood sugar spiked and his heart stopped on the concrete floor. On his first night at the Banning jail, video shows that on 2 occasions a deputy and a nurse opened a pill slot but closed it again. They did all this without speaking with Jamal Brown, yet they recorded in documents repeatedly during his stay that he had refused medical care. Jamal Brown didn't stir when the lights turned on the next morning and breakfast was served. Hours later, he woke up confused about what time it was, saying he didn't think the door ever opened. And the article is much longer. And the last paragraph is aftermath of a jail death. Within 3 hours of Jamal Brown's death, an internal affairs sergeant was writing a different version of what had happened. Quote, "Inmate Brown was type 1 diabetic, and he had refused all medications for several days." This is what John Lenton wrote, who was a sergeant at the Professional Standards Bureau, which conducts internal affairs investigations. And the dad said, "I want the public to know what really happened to my son. These reports and video tell a completely different story than what they were trying to sell me." His report was among the documents leaked to James Brown and the Desert Sign. And the final paragraph, the dad says, I'll continue to fight for transparency from the department in light of the video and reports he now has. He said the deputies and nurses that let this happen to Jamel need to be held accountable, and he hopes the department will implement real change that puts an end to similar deaths due to neglect. Finally, quote, "This is all a cover-up," James Brown said. "They let my son die. They lied about it. It's hurt me to my very heart."
You're listening to a read of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. We turn now to the money section of USA Today. And our first article is entitled, Wound to Work. What's this about? When Diana Wetherington retired from a long career as purchasing and contracting agent in 2020, she thought she had enough money to live comfortably, travel the world, and babysit her 6 grandsons. But confined to her Almonte Springs, Florida home during the COVID-19 pandemic, she had to do something to keep busy. So she began consulting for local government agencies and picked up part-time remote jobs. The cost of living crept up. Wetherington discovered she couldn't stop working and still afford the basics of her life and the overseas trips twice a year. Now, even those adventures are on hold and she can figure out where the economy is going, she said. I was good financially with my retirement until everything started going up, like house and car insurance and now food and everything else, Wetherington, age 73, said. Luckily, it's something I enjoy doing, but I'll probably have to work as long as I possibly can to be able to afford to live. Wetherington belongs to a growing wave of unretirees who are rejoining the workforce and working well past the traditional retirement age of 65. New AARP survey of adults 50 and older, shared exclusively with USA Today, found that 1 in 10 retirees replacing their bucket list with a 9-to-5 grind, many of them out of economic necessity. What's shattering the dream of retirement now? 4 in 10 older Americans say they're either looking for a job or back at work just to afford everyday living expenses. To me, that's eye-opening, said Carly Roskowski, Vice President of Financial Resilience Program at AARP. It's not just I'm afraid I'm going to outlive my retirement savings. Specifically, I'm having trouble affording everyday living costs. More Americans are working into their 60s and 70s because of longer lifespans, the desire to stay connected and to have a sense of purpose. About 38 million Americans aged 55 and older are working or looking for work, more than 2.5 times the number of older adults 40 years ago. This seismic demographic shift has reshaped the workforce, with older Americans accounting for nearly a quarter of workers today. What's different now, financial pressures are growing the ranks of the unretired, Roskowski said. For decades, a combination of pensions and Social Security made a secure retirement possible for many. Today, Social Security pays less than half of the average wages, and many older Americans don't have enough stowed in savings or 401k accounts to weather a financial shock, let alone afford the rising cost of living. In the past 6 months, 7% of retirees said they have unretired or returned to the workforce, more than double the average number. Nearly half said their primary motivation was to make money, with the desire to stay active a distant second at 14%. Retirement research has consistently found that income is the top reason retirees rejoin the workforce, not by such a wide margin, Roskowski said. T. Rowe Price estimates that 20% of retirees hold on part-time or full-time jobs, with an additional 7% seeking employment. Single retirees and women are much more likely to cite income as a reason for unretiring during their golden years. Too many of these older Americans are living on the edge said Angela Antonelli, executive director of the Center for Retirement Initiatives at Georgetown University. More than 1 in 5 households over the age of 65 rely on Social Security for more than 90% of their income, and more than half of households over the age of 55 have nothing saved for retirement, she said. While older workers are the fastest growing segment of the labor force, too many are not there by choice, Antonelli said. Now the high cost of living is shredding what safety net they had, said Jeffrey Sanzenbacher, a research fellow at the Center of Retirement Research at Boston College. Retirees are increasingly worried about paying for groceries, healthcare, and utilities. Don't get some relief, you'll see more people wanting to come off the sidelines and unretire, Sanzenbacher said. Question is then, will they be able to? The unemployment rate is up while hiring is sputtering, and that will make it harder for many retirees forced to look for work to find it, he said. And those folks are exactly the ones who tend to have problems. The people who need to unretire, the ones who don't have a lot of savings and don't have a lot of things to fall back on, Sanzenbacher said.
This next article is about Obamacare. Headline, Obamacare sign-ups have dropped by $1.2 million. And then it says the worst-case scenario has yet to materialize so far. And it's an article written by Ken Altucker for USA Today. Millions of Americans were expected to lose Affordable Care Act health insurance when enhanced tax credits were eliminated this year. But so far, the worst-case scenario has not materialized, even though momentum to reinstate COVID-era subsidies has stalled. About 23 million Americans signed up for ACA, convergence, on federal and state-based marketplaces in 2026, down from 24.2 million sign-ups as of January 2025. This according to a January 28th figure from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Enrollment is not down as much as I thought it would be, said Cynthia Cox, who is Vice President and Director of the Program of the ACA at KFF, which is a health policy nonprofit. But the preliminary figures come with a couple of big caveats, Koch and other enrollment experts said. Millions of Americans with ACA insurance, also known as Obamacare, were automatically re-enrolled in plans that are more expensive this year, and consumers' average in insurance costs may spike 114% because of the expiration of the enhanced tax credits. This according to KFF analysis. People might choose to drop coverage once they get their first monthly insurance bill. Those who are automatically re-enrolled but fail to pay their insurance bills get a grace period of 3 months before their coverage is terminated. Those figures won't be known until later this year, Cox said. Before the enhanced tax credits took effect in 2021, about 85% of enrollees who signed up for an ACA plan paid their premiums to maintain their insurance coverage, says Sabrina Corlette, co-director of Georgetown University's Center on Health Insurance Reforms. Also unknown, is how many people switched to higher deductible bronze plans that charge a lower monthly premium. While switching to a high deductible plan might make it more affordable to keep coverage, consumers' out-of-pocket costs can soar when they visit the doctor or hospital or fill a prescription. The number of enrollees who paid their premiums or switched to cheaper, less robust plans are the two big unknowns. She said that those figures are needed, quote, before we can draw any conclusions about what the impact of the federal policy change really means, unquote. State aid for enrollees bolsters signups. What's that mean? State aid for enrollees will bolster signups. Several states that operate their own state-based ACA insurance exchanges have sought to cushion the blow with financial aid for consumers. New Mexico signups reached an alliance high in 2026, partly because of generous state measures that replaced the ACA's enhanced premium tax credits. A total of 82,403 state residents signed up for coverage as of mid-January, a 17% increase from last year, 2025. New Mexico's Healthcare Affordability Fund, created in 2021 and supported by a tax on health insurers, reduces premiums and out-of-pocket costs for people on BeWell, which is the state's ACA marketplace. The fund also supports other health programs, and nearly half of the fund's revenue goes to New Mexico's general fund. State assistance for ACA signups is allocated through June, but the state legislature must act to extend assistance throughout the year, said Abuco Estrada, who is a healthcare director of the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty. There's a lot of concerns from families about potential coverage losses, Estrada said. They are concerned that assistance could go away. Other states offer limited assistance for residents who face higher insurance bills. Why? Because of the absence of enhanced tax credits. California and Maryland extend subsidies to low to moderate income families, but those who earn at least 4 times the federal poverty level, they'll have to pay full costs. Maryland it has a 1-year program, and it replaces any lost subsidies for individuals who earn up to $31,300 per year, which is 2 times the federal poverty level. California's assistance is capped for individuals and families who earn up to 165% of the federal poverty level. For information, Colorado and Washington also have approved limited financial assistance for some, not all, ACA enrollees. Question: is the push to extend ACA subsidies, is it dead or is it not? Congressional Democrats last year pushed to extend enhanced tax credits that made insurance less expensive for millions of Americans. Democrats forced a federal government shutdown for a record 43 days in late 2025, when most Republicans refused to extend the subsidies. Without the enhanced tax credits that expired at the end of 2025, average costs for 22 million Americans who get subsidized ACA insurance more than doubled. The subsidies doubled in January, according to KFF. Some consumers said they've struggled to afford rising expenses for ACA insurance plans. The Congressional Budget Office estimated 3.8 million Americans would lose health insurance through 2035. Why? It's due to the expiration of the advanced subsidies. Congress passed a budget fix on February 3rd, a couple of days ago. Most federal agencies through September to end a partial government shutdown. The budget includes health-related provisions on medical billing and drug pricing middlemen called pharmacy benefit managers, but that didn't address the ACA subsidies. On January 8th, the House passed legislation that would extend ACA enhanced premium tax credits for 3 years. That was on January 8th. Senator Bernie Moreno, an Ohio Republican, crafted a bipartisan compromise in the Senate, but his proposal has not advanced. Moreno told Semaphore on February 2nd, a week ago, that some Democrats haven't ruled out his plan to modify and extend the enhanced tax credits. Quote, "The people I'm talking to want to actually solve it," he said. Healthcare advocates are urging lawmakers to continue trying to improve ACA affordability. And the last two short paragraphs say Anthony Wright, Executive Director of Families USA, which advocates for healthcare consumers, noted that the House's deal to end the government shutdown included two provisions on healthcare affordability. Quote, "Despite the inclusion of these policies, the package fails to stop the massive premium spike in the individual insurance market." How do they do this? By not extending the enhanced premium tax credits, said Wright.
Well, get ready, everybody, because this article says robots for your home are on the way. For more than a decade, Faraday Future has described its electric vehicles as something more than cars, rolling computers packed with sensors, software, and artificial intelligence. Now the embattled EV maker is taking that idea to its literal conclusion. Faraday Future just unveiled 3 robots under a new division called FF AI Robotics, Inc. There's a full-sized humanoid designed for public and commercial spaces, a smaller humanoid for home and multi-use, and a quadruped robot for security, inspection, and educational settings. The company says the robots will begin delivery in late February. Until now, most humanoid robots have lived in a familiar loop. Flashy concept demos, breathless promises, and vague assurances that they'll change everything someday. CES was filled with them. Faraday, by contrast, says these machines are ready to roll and ready to ship. We're going to be the first U.S. company able to deliver real robotic products to users, said Chris Chen, co-CEO of FF AI Robotics. People remember the first. Apple delivered smartphones to the market. Tesla delivered EVs. We're doing that for robots. Faraday's lineup begins with FF Futurist, expect to retail starting at just less than $40,000. Standing about 5 feet 6 inches tall, it's designed to serve as a first touch in business settings, greeting visitors in more than 50 languages, answering basic questions, collecting information, and routing people to a human employee. Hotels, hospitals, casinos, auto showrooms, museums, events, anywhere the first interaction is structured, repetitive, and predictable, Chen added. The second humanoid, FF Master, is smaller, roughly 4 feet 3 inches tall, and built less for logistics than engagement. Chen describes it as more agile and less intimidating. People are comfortable interacting with it, he said. It can dance, perform martial arts style movements, ride a bike, and hold basic conversations, making it better suited for homes, classrooms, retail demonstrations, and entertainment. Faraday expects Master to retail for about $23,000. A third robot category actually contains 2 different models already, both under the name FF Aegis. These are the futuristic dog bots of the bunch, with low rectangular bodies and 4 articulated metal legs. Like other robot quadrupeds already on the market, they prioritize balance, terrain handling, and reliability over personality. The smaller of the 2 will cost $2,500, while a version with more advanced expandable skills will cost just under $3,500. Right now, the Aegis series is positioned as Faraday's most accessible robot, and Chen says the one many people would take home first. Aegis is for people who want the presence of a security sentry or pet without the responsibility, he said. No feeding, no cleanup, no vet bills. So who's buying these robots? Well, Joe Alcedo, CEO of Humanoids, a Los Angeles-based robotics showroom, hopes to become the GameStop of the robotics revolution, says you might be surprised by how many people are already buying these first-to-market bots. Former airline operations executive Alcedo left his job last fall to go all in on robotics. He says interest is real, even if the technology is still early. Right now, these are like the first versions of the iPhone, he said. You can make calls, but no apps yet. That's where humanoid robots are today. Still, people are buying. Since August, Cito said, Humanoids has sold about 60 quadruped robots and 10 humanoid robots, primarily from Chinese manufacturers. Prices typically range from about $5,000 for quadrupeds to $20,000 for humanoids. Buyers include families, hobbyists, schools, and event organizers. People will pay for novelty, experimentation, or early access. Some of it's excitement, he said, some of it's education. Some of it's just wanting something that no one else on the block has. Alcedo believes timing can give Faraday a competitive edge. Most of what we see now has been prototypes, he said. These are actually available. You can buy them now. But being first to market does not automatically make robots a household staple by any stretch. When asked who had $50,000 to spend on a humanoid robot that doesn't yet do much beyond walking, talking, and performing program routines, Cito paused. Well, that's the big question, he said, and why its prices have come down. He expects that shift sooner than many people think as computing powers improve, production scales up, and robots move toward subscription-style models rather than one-time purchases. $2,000, he said, that's the price where people can slap down a credit card with asking their spouse for permission. Well, when will robots become truly useful? Chen does not pretend that moment has arrived. Everyone asks me the same thing, he said. Will it do my laundry? The answer, he says, depends less on hardware than on data. The real world is complicated, Chen said. Robots need massive amounts of training data to operate safely and reliably in homes. That data, along with planned robotic skill marketplace and developer platform, also is a core part of FF Aerobotics business. Within a year or two, Chen believes robots across the industry, not just Faraday's, will begin handling meaningful household tasks. That's when the shift from novelty to necessity would truly have its smartphone moment. And in summary now, Faraday's robots remain a luxury experiment, early, imperfect, and undeniably intriguing. Whether they become indispensable tools or expensive curiosities will depend on what they can actually do next. And yes, Chen promises laundry is on the list.
Ooh, how about that? And the last brief article here on this section is about pizza. Pizza Hut is set to close 250 underperforming locations in the United States. Maybe someone can out-pizza the Hut. After all, Pizza Hut is set to close 250 underperforming locations in the U.S. during the first half of this year, and as its parent company, Yum Brands Incorporated, continues a strategic review of the struggling brand. Of the 250 stores that we mentioned is a very small portion of the 20,000 units estate that Pizza Hut has globally. Yum Brands did not immediately respond to USA Today's request for a comment on February 4th. Other restaurant closures are coming up. Although 2026 is only a month in, multiple fast food and fast casual chain restaurants across the United States have announced plans to downsize, with some stating they intend to focus resources on their stronger performing stores. Among the restaurants that have announced closures are Noodles and Company, Red Robin, and Wendy's. Noodles and Company, in a January 12th news release, said it would be closing 30 to 35 stores in 2026. Wendy's said in January that it's continuing to evaluate underperforming restaurants that could close this year. And the last comment, Fernando Cervantes Jr. is a trending news reporter for USA Today. He does research, and if you want to get in touch with him, you can do so, and he'll give you more skinny on the things that are closing.
Here's something that's just the same. Minute Maid discontinuing frozen orange juice and lemonade. Minute Maid is icing out its line of products that helped give the company its start 8 decades ago. The company is discontinuing its frozen fruit products, which include orange juice and lemonade. The Coca-Cola Company, which owns Minute Maid, confirmed in a statement to USA Today. We are discontinuing our frozen products and exiting the frozen can category in response to shifting consumer preferences, the company said. With the juice category going strongly, we're focusing on products that better match what consumers want. Products are being discontinued in the first quarter of 2026. Inventory will avail in stores while supplies last, Coca-Cola said. Minute Maid was then known as the Vacuum Foods Corporation, shipped its first frozen orange juice in 1946, according to Coca-Cola. The item has long been preferred by some shoppers for its extended shelf life and often cheaper price compared with fresh orange juice. The Coca-Cola Company confirmed to be discontinuing all of its frozen Minute Maid products. According to the company website, the following items are sold as frozen juice concentrates: orange juice, country-style orange juice, lemonade, limeade, pink lemonade, raspberry lemonade. According to Coca-Cola, frozen juices helped give Minute Maid its start. In 1945, the company, then known as Florida Foods Corporation, won a contract to sell powdered orange juice to the U.S. Army. But when the deal fell through, the next year it pivoted to making frozen orange juice concentrate instead. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA for the 9th day of September in Iowa Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are Tom Scanlon and
Tom Travers.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers remain Tom Scanlon and
Tom Travers.
As always, we turn to the money section. The sports section. And our first article is an Olympic article. Breezy Johnson snags first gold for the U.S. Cortina di Campazzo, Italy. Breezy Johnson has conquered Cortina, the same course that ended her Olympic dreams in 2022, delivered her gilded immortality Sunday, February 8th, as she won the women's downhill gold medal with a time of 1:36.10. The win came on the same day U.S. teammate Lindsey Vonn suffered a hard crash, was airlifted to a local hospital, in just over a week since Vonn ruptured her ACL on her left knee. Johnson skied sixth in the lineup, her time holding up as the remaining 30 skiers raced. About halfway through the remaining order, while Johnson was still in the winner's seat, she appeared to be tearing up, realizing she'd be an Olympic medalist. After an emotional medal ceremony, she walked over to the mixed zone with an empty ribbon around her neck, the medal she wore all her life for sitting in her front right coat pocket. "Well," she said, "I was jumping up and down in excitement and it fell off." She deadpanned about her newly won gold, first medal captured by Team USA at the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics. While sitting with German silver medalist Emma Acher and the Italian bronze medalist Sofia Gaggia during the post-event press conference, Johnson playfully warned Acher, who was holding her medal, "Don't jump, Johnson." A two-time Olympian also made history, becoming the first American woman not named Mikaela Shiffrin or Lindsey Vonn to win an individual medal in alpine skiing since Julia Mancuso in 2014, which was a bronze and super combined. But one would know by Johnson's cool, casual demeanor after the race. She munched on a chocolate protein bar as she fielded questions from American reporters around 2:40 p.m. local time. Her first bit of nourishment since a strudel at 10 a.m., roughly an hour and a half before the race. Johnson, who turned 30 on January 19th, made jokes, but she was earnest when she explained how much this accomplishment meant to her after an injury kept her from competing in the previous Olympics 2022, and a suspension by the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency for whereabouts failures kept her off the World Cup circuit 2024. "I think people are jealous of people with Olympic gold medals," Johnson said. "They're not necessarily jealous of the journey it took to get those medals. I don't think my journey is something that many people are envious of. And it's been a tough road, but sometimes you just have to keep going, because that's the only option. If you're going through hell, you keep walking because you don't want to just sit around in hell. And sometimes when you keep going, maybe you make it back to the top." Johnson suffered a devastating crash at the Dauphin Alpine Skiing Center in Cortina during a training run 4 years ago. The accident partially dislodged a large chunk of cartilage in her right knee. As a result, she had to withdraw from the 2022 Beijing Olympic Games. Told reporters February 6th, ahead of the first downhill training run, that she needed to exercise her Dolomite demons. She finished that run sixth in one Saturday's training session that was abbreviated due to weather. American skiing star Mikaela Shiffrin, who's skipping the speed events at these games to focus on the slalom and giant slalom, was one of the first people to offer congratulations to Johnson. Two have been friends since they were kids, so Shiffrin was glued to her TV to watch the race. Another American teammate, Bella Wright, was also blown away by Johnson's race. "I think this was the best run Breezy ever skied," said Wright, who finished 21st in the downhill. "I've seen her ski ever since I was 8 years old. We've competed with each other. Today she had some mistakes, she had some wild moments, but she really was so gritty. I knew it was going to be her hard run to beat." On Sunday, Johnson skied down the mountain toward Olympic glory. The next track she'd like a shot at? I crashed in Mariba, France," Johnson said. "Heard the Olympics are there in 4 years." Indeed, the 2030 Winter Olympics are being held in the French Alps.
Next article from the Olympics is titled Humbled and Loose. And it mentions Mikaela Shiffrin, ready for her 4th Winter Olympics, whatever may come. And there's a picture of her wrapped in an American flag. And Cortina d'Ampezzo, Italy. Dozens of reporters speaking in languages from all over the world packed into an intimate press conference room outside the Cortina Curling Olympic Stadium, eager to hear what Mikaela Shiffrin had to say in her first availability of the 2026 Winter Games. Wow, she said Saturday evening, February 7th, doe-eyed, grabbing at the back of her neck in the doorway. Okay? The most decorated alpine skier of all time stood there in awe, as if she could not believe the number of people who showed up, as if she wasn't one of the most famous athletes at these games. Perhaps a reflection of her humility, or the work she put in with her therapist, or a combination of both. Shiffrin dripped with ease. She was looser than a first grader's front tooth. Interesting. She emphasized gratitude to be on the stage for a 4th time and for the process that led her back to it. There's so much else that has gone on in the course of the last 4 years and the last 8 years and 16 years of my career so far, Shiffrin said. So pressure can exist at the games, but like Billie Jean King said, pressure is a privilege. Shiffrin made her Olympic debut in 2014 at 18 years old, winning gold at the Sochi Games to become the youngest slalom champion in history. She won the giant slalom and earned silver in the super combined event 4 years later in Pyeongchang. Shiffrin attempted 6 events in Beijing in 2022, giant slalom, super G, downhill, women's combined, and mixed team, but missed the podium in every single one of those. Next article is Top. Mikaela Shiffrin is a 2-time gold medalist in her Olympic history and an 8-time world champion. Shiffrin has 108 World Cup wins, tops at all time among all alpine skiers, male or female. This year, she's pared down her program to team combined giant slalom and slalom. Shiffrin's return to the Olympics comes a little over a year ago after her head skis crash in Killington World Cup and gave her an abdominal stab wound. All she could feel as she slid on her back down the snow was pain. She has since been diagnosed with PTSD that likely stemmed from the terrifying tumble and other not as severe accidents throughout her career. Changing one's mental and physical reality takes time, hard work, patience, all things that have vaulted Shiffrin to Cortina. I don't have an exact answer for how to define success at these games, she said. We've been working so hard, my coaches and the staff, and every single day we show up on the mountain with all of our values. She made silly faces after innocently stumbling through the ends of answers. She kept the media entertained, fielding a question about her viral back abs by saying she wishes she had more on her front. But Shiffrin wants to make it clear that she's representing her own personal values at these games, not those of Donald Trump's administration back home. Shiffrin came to Cortina prepared to be asked about whether she felt conflicted competing on behalf of the United States, given the international backlash to immigration raids championed by the White House. She wrote down, in full, the Nelson Mandela quote actor Charlie Theron read aloud during the Milano Cortina opening ceremony the night before. Quote, "Peace is not just the absence of conflict. Peace is the creation of an environment where we can all flourish regardless of race, color, creed, religion, gender, class, caste, or any other social markers of difference, unquote. She added, in her own words, "For me, as this related to the Olympics, I really hope to show up and represent my own values of diversity and kindness and sharing, tenacity, work ethic, showing up with my team every single day."
Nice article.
Yes, yeah.
Here's another one in the same vein. Bold Vaughn's courage, so inspiring. Dateline Cortina d'Ampezzo, Italy. It was always the risk Lindy Vaughn was willing to take. She knew skiing at these Olympics was a gamble, as likely to end in pain and disappointment as in glory and gold. But life favors the bold. Whatever her physical injuries are now, that pain and those scars will eventually fade. Regrets and what ifs last forever. Vaughn's crash in the Olympic downhill on Sunday was horrifying for its ferocity. She hooked a gate at high speed, spinning almost 360 degrees before being hurled into the hard-packed snow. She tumbled end over end several times, and her wails of pain could be heard when she finally came to a stop. But there was a horrifying numbness to it, too, knowing a story that's captivated so many, it was not going to end triumphantly or even happily. She had brought everyone along on a ride, giving the mere mortals among us a glimpse at what it's like to live life with abandon. Now it was done. She just dared greatly, and she put it all out there, Vaughn's sister Karen Kidlow told NBC after the crash. She always goes 110%. It's never anything less. So I know she put her whole heart into it, and something like this happens. When we were kids, we charged life head first because we didn't know any better. The world is one of endless possibilities where we really can be an astronaut or a superhero or an Olympian champion. For most of us, though, that fearlessness fades. Our audaciousness is tempered by consequences and repercussions, by the mundane responsibilities that come with growing up. We learn to lead with good rather than dream of great. Not Vaughn. Part of her appeal has always been a refusal to give up or accept defeat. Vaughn has endured injuries and heartbreaks too many to count, and she keeps coming back for more. Tell her she can't do something, and she'll work 2, 3, 4 times as hard. Suggest something's not as good idea, she takes it as a challenge. She lived her life on her terms, uninterested in someone else's constraints. It's kind of the way we operated as a family. We always wanted to do the best that we could, and we had always high ambitions for ourselves, Vaughn said last fall. I think it's also a lot easier for yourself if you reframe everything in a way that gives you the power. I don't like external pressure in the sense that I'm doing something for somebody else. I'm doing it for me, and I'm driven by my own aspirations. It's why she was on this mountain in the first place. Vaughn's legacy as one of the greatest skiers of all time is more than secure. She's a 3-time Olympic medalist, including a gold 2010 downhill that was a first for an American woman. Her 84 World Cup win trailed only Michaela Schifrin and Ingemar Stenmark. But her decision to retire in 2019 was not really a choice. Her body was broken down, her right knee in particular, ravaged from her many injuries. So when she felt better than she had in decades after a partial replacement of her right knee in April 2024, Vaughn decided to give ski racing a go again. Not because she had something to prove, but because she was still trying to fill some hole in her life. Because she could. Because she wanted to see if it was possible, rather than accepting it was probably impossible. So many of us cheered it because we were living vicariously through her, having the guts to do something we wanted without caring what anyone else thought or worried about what could go wrong. Vaughn was living in the moment, and she was doing it all at full volume. Even after a crash 9 days ago earlier, tore her ACL, bone bruising and meniscus damage in her left knee, Vaughn was undaunted. Easy thing would have been to head home and recuperate, accepting maybe it wasn't meant to be. But where's the fun in that? Why not at least try? Maybe she'd succeed. Maybe she'd fail. Maybe she'd end up somewhere in between. She'd never have to wonder. I'll race tomorrow in my final Olympic downhill, and while I can't guarantee a good result, I can guarantee I'll give it everything I have, Vaughn wrote in an Instagram post the night before the race. But no matter what happens, I've already won. Yes, Lindsey Vonn crashed in spectacular fashion, but at least she was brave enough to take the risk, which is more than most of us could ever say.
Switching from the Olympics a little bit, it says the WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association, makes housing facilities concessions to the players. Article by Heather Burns for USA Today. The WNBA made concessions in 2 areas in its latest collective bargaining agreement proposal. A person with knowledge of the situation told USA Sports Today. The person spoke on condition of anonymity because they're not authorized to speak publicly about ongoing negotiations. Coming off a 3-hour meeting on February 2nd in New York, the WNBA promised it would have a counter to the proposals the players' union submitted 6 weeks ago. That offer came on Friday evening. In the proposal, the WNBA made a concession on team provided housing. The person with knowledge of the situation said, in the revised agreement, 1-bedroom apartments will be available for players making the minimum salary. The 2 developmental players on each roster would be provided with studio apartments. The union also voiced setting standards for team facilities that would be codified in the new CBA, the person with knowledge of the situation said. Nothing changed in terms of revenue, money, or sharing or salaries. The WNBA is offering more than 70% of league and team net revenue. The union has asked for 30% of gross revenue. The salary cap would be $5.65 million a year, rising with league revenue. The WNBA offers continue to include a maximum $1 million base salary with a projected revenue sharing component that raises players' max total earnings to more than $1.3 million in 2026. The league's maximum salary would grow to nearly $2 million over the life of the agreement, which would end in 2031. The minimum salary would be more than $250,000 and average salary more than $530,000. The union plans to meet with leadership to review and assess the league's counterproposal, a person with knowledge of the situation told USA Sports. The regular season is supposed to tip off May 6th, but before that can happen, the Toronto Tempo and Portland Fire will have an expansion draft. Free agency and the WNBA draft also need to take place. WNBA players authorized the union executive committee to, quote, call a strike when necessary in December. Having the strike on the table is something that we're very much aware of, but there's so many more conversations that have to happen. Oguliki told the Associated Press on Friday, quote, we're not just going to say, hey, today's the day we'll strike, I think that's what we're demonstrating right now, is negotiating in good faith. In the final paragraph, the WNBA is offering more than 70% of league and team net revenue. The Players Union has asked for 30% of gross revenue. The salary cap would be $5.65 million per year, rising with league revenue. So the ladies are in the negotiations.
They're not backing down, are they?
No, they aren't. Yeah.
This next article is on ice dancing at the Olympics. Chalk and Bates now face greatest challenge. That's the headline. Dateline Milan. You would have guessed that Madison Chalk and Evan Bates just put on another season best performance, no less on the biggest stage at the 2026 Winter Olympics. The couple were calm and unceremonious with reporters after their free dance in the team event on Saturday, February 7th. They put the U.S. in first place with a 5-point lead heading into the medal-deciding final yesterday. So were they not happy? Far from it. Were they mad? Doesn't seem so. So what was it? Maybe it's because they have their eyes set on a bigger prize, but are working through a gauntlet to get at it. Simply put, they're buckling up for arguably the biggest week of their lives. Chalk and Bates by far have the most challenging schedule of any figure skaters in the Games. 4 programs in 6 days, including back-to-back duty in the team event on February 6th and 7th. Now they had 48 hours until the ice dance competition opens today, with a rhythm dance and concluded on February 11th with the free dance. Their performances in the team event set up Team USA for its possible second straight gold medal. Our team's incredibly strong and arguably as strong as it's ever been, and I have the utmost faith in them, Chalk said. I'll be proud of them no matter what the outcome is. But the most decorated ice pair since U.S. figure skating history wants more than a team medal in Milan. They want the ice dance gold medal, the one achievement they've been chasing for years. While they did so much heavy lifting for their team, their competition got extra rest. Laurence Fournier, Boudre, and Guillaume Cizeron from France, Lee Lafleur and Louis Gibson from Great Britain didn't skate the free dance because France and Great Britain didn't qualify for the final. Canada did make the final, but it opted to go with Marjorie Lahoya and Zachary Laga for the free dance, saving the legs of Piper Gillis and Paul Poitier. They all well rested for the ice dance, while Chalk and Bates will still be recovering. On paper, like Chalk and Bates are at a disadvantage. However, if you've seen this duo all this season, you know that's far from the case. We came into the event knowing that was a possibility, Chalk said. We're prepared. As for crowded and deep the ice dance field is, the Americans don't see it as a competition with others. Bates said they're just competing with themselves. And every single time, they keep on winning. It's just a progression, he said. It's very cliche, but it's our mindset and it's our approach. It's how we've stayed focused. It's how we've been training. A whirlwind of week halfway done, but the job is far from over. It's the biggest challenge of their careers, and this pair is ready for it.
This final article here is National Football League MVP to play in 2026. After narrowly winning the top individual honor in football, Matthew Stafford decided to break a bit of news about his future. In his acceptance speech after winning the 2025 National Football League MVP award at the NFL Honors Ceremony in San Francisco, the Los Angeles Rams quarterback confirmed he would return for the 2026 season. Quote, "To my 4 beautiful daughters, who I am lucky enough to be sharing the stage with, I am so happy to have you at the games, on the sideline with me, and I can't wait for you to cheer me on next year when we're out here kicking butt," Stafford said. "So, I'll see you guys next year. Hopefully I'm not at this event, and we're getting ready for another game at SoFi Stadium, where Super Bowl 61 will be held." Cameras cut to Rams coach Sean McVay, who applauded the remark, and Rams running back Kyren Williams, who smiled and bounced as Stafford continued to speak. Stafford confirmed to reporters afterwards he had not informed teammates or the coaching staff about his decision prior to the announcement Thursday night, February 5th. It's something I'd been thinking about and honestly talking over with my family about even before the season ended, whether or not they wanted me to continue to play or whether or not I feel like it. I wanted to keep playing, said Stafford, who turned 38 years old on Saturday. I ended the season on a healthy note and was a part of a great team. I had a bunch of teammates in the crowd, some coaches in the crowd, and it just felt like the right thing to do at the right time. It's a family decision. I had my girls, my family with me, so I did the right thing.
Looks like we got time for another article here, Tom.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Here's one on college football. Filthy Rich SEC must sell Big Ten on 16 CFP. Well, what's this about? Why this surprises anyone, I don't know. But more than the flush with cash points, why would the world are the SEC presidents allowing the Big Ten presidents, and by proxy Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, run the sport? It's time for the SEC presidents to make a clear and unmistakable move. Tell the Big Ten to join a 16-team playoff, or the SEC is walking away, with or without the other 8 football subdivision conferences. Why would the SEC, which doled out a conference record $1.03 billion in revenue to its 16 teams, sit around and allow the Big Ten to decide where the sports postseason begins and ends, and how it's played, especially considering 9 of the 10 FBS conferences are in favor of a 16-team format. The only conference that isn't? The Big Ten. If exclusion television partner ESPN will pay SEC $1 billion annually, it's only going to increase over the course of a media rights deal that ends in 2033. What would NBC pay for a SEC only playoff, or playoff of 9 NBC conferences? Doesn't matter if the Big Ten has won the last 3 national titles, or the SEC has clearly seen slippage among its marquee schools in the span of, we're looking at you, Alabama and Georgia, LSU and Florida. Doesn't matter that 3 of the last 4 Heisman Trophy winners weren't from the SEC schools, after 6 of the previous 7 were. The only thing that matters is that the SEC is still the undisputed king of television ratings. The Big Ten has made great strides catching a sister super conference in some areas, but still trades dramatically in television ratings. The SEC has 12 of the top 23 most-watched teams in the regular season in 2025. The Big Ten had 6. Only South Carolina, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Arkansas weren't among the elite group of television draws. Think about this. LSU, which fired its coach in October, won 7 games in 2025, was still the 7th most-watched team in college football. Only Ohio State and Michigan from the Big Ten were higher. The SEC, frankly, shouldn't allow anyone, much less the Big Ten, make decisions about the future of a sport that essentially is on television life support without it. The SEC could have its own playoff and still outdraw anything the other conferences could cobble together. Better yet, the SEC could take the remaining 8 FBS conferences and move to a 16-team playoff. Then look at the Big Ten presidents to say you're welcome to join us. If not, good luck selling Iowa versus Minnesota in the first round of your postseason party.
Okay, we're ready to move into the life section. And the first article is a movie review. It says, Charlie XCX film fails to meet the moment, end quote. There's a picture of 2 women on stage or wherever they are. The creative plans of Celeste Haley Benson Gates, and sitting on the left, and Charlie XCX playing a version of herself are blown up in the moment. This movie review is so not brat. You know what that means? Charlie XCX stars as a fictionalized ticking bomb version of herself in the meta mock commentary The Moment. It's getting 3 or 4 stars, rated R, now in theaters. Now, and at least in one instance, the movie embraces part of the definition of brat. The British pop singer, songwriter popularized a couple of years ago. It's a mess. The film aims to be a Generation Z/millennial. This is Spinal Tap, but with much less clever wit and way more vocal fry. After Brat's Summer in 2024, when her Grammy-winning Brat album with that slime green cover took over pop culture, Charlie is on top of the world as she preps to launch her first arena headlining world tour. She also is a bundle of shredded nerves in need of a validation. There's no time for that. Why? Because she needs to maintain the massive momentum. Atlantic Records executive Tammy Rosanna Arquette has signed up in-demand director Joannes to helm Charlie's Amazon concert film, which is an important cog to making sure Brat lives forever. The problem begins with Celeste, played by Haley Benton Gates, Charlie's pal and main creative collaborator. In the early days of tour rehearsal, Joannes shows up and immediately clashes with Celeste, causing more stress for Charlie. The singer bolts for Ibiza for a few days, which creates tumult among her posse and extra emotional turmoil for Charlie, and she returns from the impromptu holiday to find an overwhelming amount of chaos waiting. The music movie tries to capture the insanity and the inanity of being a modern celebrity. The petulant and stressed Charlie overthinks social posts and radio cutouts and is thrown into doing a "What's in My Bag" video for British Vogue and a Banks Brat credit card publicity stunt. And there are moments where the moment finds a few choice nuggets of absurdity. Charlie gets in a gigantic lighter prop that spews out fire, which gives vibes of Spinal Tap's iconic Stonehenge bit, and butts heads with an eccentric aesthetician named Ariel Dombasky. But the movie, directed by music video filmmaker Aiden Zamiri, is a hodgepodge of tones and genres that doesn't hold together at all. One stylistic thing it totally nails: flashing lights. This movie loves a flashing light. 1 minute, there's a dark psychological scene. In the next, Charlie runs into Kylie Jenner for an awkwardly semi-humorous convo. For the most part, the dramatic parts are not serious. The comedy parts aren't that funny. And somehow this flick is so busy it comes back to being boring. As the famous young woman constantly on the verge of a breakdown, Charlie plays a pretty good brat. She sparkles in the satirical bits where you get a sense of her showmanship and spirit, but she spends a lot of the movie partying and brooding. Rachel Sennott enjoyably cameos as a version of herself, who's a Charlie Frenny. Sagatgard is sufficiently wacky and off-putting as the irksome Joannes, and Jamie Demetriou does yeoman's work as Charlie's put-upon manager. Tim is the manager. The poor sap, tapped to keep Charlie on task, and usually fails in that work. And the last paragraph here says, "The moment falls short of its ambitious goals of exploring the pressures and anxieties of the contemporary music superstar, and as a vanity project, well, the weekend's pretentious hurry up tomorrow look like a Crittenden collection selection in comparison. To borrow a line from one of Charlie's entourage, it's all cringe, baby."
Here's a book review. Lucci says late husband sends signs. Dateline New York. After her husband of 52 years died, Susan Lucci didn't think she'd ever feel joy again. During a more than 40-year run on the ABC soap opera All My Children, Lucci's character, Erika Kane, married 11 times. But off-screen, Lucci had a once-in-a-lifetime love. She married an Austrian chef and producer, Helmut Huber, in 1969 when she was 22. They had 2 children together, Lisa and Andreas, whom they raised in Garden City, New York. When Huber died in 2022, Lucia says she couldn't listen to songs with lyrics. She felt like half a person. But at some point, she started seeing signs. First, it was dimes. Suddenly, Lucy found them everywhere. 2 of them paired together on a bench. Entire bags of them on her bedside table. Hubert's birthday was October 10th, and he loved the double tens in his birthday, Lucy said. Then feathers started showing up in places where there were no birds, or at an outdoor dinner, landing on her plate setting and no one else's. It was a tickle from the man with a great sense of humor, she believes. Lucy never planned to tell anyone about the signs, let alone write about them, but she felt compelled to put pen to paper. And more than just write down memories of Huber, she realized she had lessons from her grief journey to share. In La Lucci, now out from Blackstone Publishing, Lucy is holding her heavy moments in one hand and joy in the other. There's a line that stuck with me even after I read Lucci's memoir. 6 weeks after Huber died, a friend of his came up to Lucy at a gathering and said, "There must be a crack in the universe with Helmut gone." He was like that, she said, charismatic enough to rip a hole open in the sky. It was wonderful to hear such beautiful words said about the love of my life, Lucy said. He was larger than life, one and very authentic, very comfortable in his own skin. And as our daughter-in-law in Europe said, he just always feels safe with Helmut. He always felt like he knew what to do, and he would do it, and he'd have a great time in his company. He'd be laughing the whole time, too. It's evident in one humorous anecdote from before Lucy won her Daytime Emmy after 18 unsuccessful nominations in 1999. Couple got a new dog, and Lucy joked she should name him Emmy, so she'd at least have one. "Forget an Emmy, let's go to Oscar," Huber said. Lucy said, "Let's just go right to the top. We'll name him Oscar." When he died, she had a difficult time accepting he was gone. I'm not somebody who takes no for an answer very easily. I try to find her around the fence, under the fence, through the fence, over the fence. And that, of course, was something that I couldn't do about anything. Losing my husband, Lucy said. Prayer helped, as did our longtime friendships. At some point, a friend told her she had a choice on how she grieved. She allowed to keep living her life. She was allowed to feel joy again, and she would. You don't know what you're going to learn in your lessons. You don't know what things are going to be said to you to help you through, Lucy said. My husband's friends stayed with me. My friends are friends, and I feel so incredibly grateful for them. We have lots of laughs. We do things together, and I'm just so happy to be in their company. They helped me stand up when I didn't think I could. There's another kind of grief that Lucy writes about in La Lucy, mourning the end of All My Children, her home for more than 4 decades. Lucy was cast as Erika Kane after graduating from college. Signed a 3-year contract, felt daunting at that age. He remembers the early days vividly. They all knew rather quickly that their show was a hit, especially when press and speaking requests started flooding in. The final days come back to her with such clarity. In April 2011, she got a call at 4:30 a.m. from the show creator, Agnes Nixon. Nixon didn't want Lucy to be blindsided. Lucy says she felt terrible showing up to work the next day and knowing that her castmates did not. He had just returned from her book tour for her first memoir, spent the time assuring fans that the show was still in such good shape. She pressed Brian Fonz, former ABC daytime president, about the decision. He said without batting an eyelash, because it was 40% less to produce a food show, and he looked very proud of himself, Lucy said. Agnes told me that the fans had actually crashed the whole system at ABC. There was a number you could call, so I did call it. To register your upset at All My Children being canceled, press 1. For all other ABC business, press 2. The fans were indeed there for us, but the choice of the network was to cancel. Lucy was unsure she'd ever been cast again. She just moved cross-country to Los Angeles. It was most cost-efficient to shoot All My Children there. I've been playing Erica my whole adult life and didn't know how it would be to walk around now. I'm not Erica anymore. I don't play Erica anymore. Will I ever work again? Lucy said. In the end, it was the fans who helped the new dream come to life for Lucy. They began campaigning online to get her on Desperate Housewives. By the time she met with creator Mark Cherry, the show had already wrapped, but he cast her on Devious Maids. Lucy was back on TV drama. Flip the channel during working hours and you'll still find Days of Our Lives and General Hospital punching out new storylines. But since Lucy left, All My Children television appetites have largely changed. Streaming rules, limited series are all the rage, and long wait times. We're Looking at You, Stranger Things, are common. Since Lucy is daytime's most famous face, I had to ask her, do soap operas have a place in today's digital streaming age? Lucy offers a resounding yes. Favorite these days is Beyond the Gates, a new CBS series that follows multiple generations of affluent black families in the Maryland suburbs. I think there's a place for it. I think people like to see other people's relationships and how they navigate themselves through life, Lucy said. Connection from storytelling as old as time and as relevant as it ever was. And maybe now, because of these difficult times and these different times and these technological times, we have stories told with human relationships at the core. I think human beings will always want to see that.
This next article is currently streaming. Lincoln Lawyer is the movie or whatever that's streaming. Lincoln Lawyer adds more emotion to mix. As Mickey Haller on The Lincoln Lawyer, Manuel Garcia Ruflo is a flashy, big-shot Los Angeles lawyer, always in a tailored court fit. But when the director calls cut, Rufio slips out of character, untucks his button-up shirt, and trades his dress shoes for comfy hokas. The signature Haller charisma, though, is part of Rufio's DNA. After wrapping a court scene from Season 4's Episode 5, You're the One That I Want, streaming now on Netflix with Constance Zimmer, who plays Dana Berg, and Neve Campbell, who makes her highly anticipated comeback as Maggie Garcia Ruflo makes his way through the set, warmly welcoming, giving thanks to, and acknowledging anyone that crosses his line of sight. The L.A. courthouse hallway, which usually is filled with extras dressed in the best legal looks on screen, is absolute chaos during a muggy June afternoon. At the LA Center Studios, where The Lincoln Lawyer is primarily filmed, The set is bustling with crew members duct taping electrical wire to the floor, moving around monitors and chairs, working quickly to make TV magic happen. Less than an hour later, duct tape is cleared, and they're ready to shoot another scene. Over at the set, built for the Holler and Associates office, Garcia Rufo, 44 years old, walks in to join us for our interview before Ted Humphrey, the co-creator and co-showrunner of The Lincoln Lawyer, arrives. Garcia Rufo is visibly tired, but still makes an effort to put on a smile. At the time, the actor had just returned from a Jurassic World press tour, a stop in Mexico City with co-stars Jonathan Bailey and Scarlett Johansson. So how does Garcia Rufo muster this energy to juggle filming a movie and a hit Netflix show, plus press tours, movie premieres, and interviews such as this one? I just pray to the gods, he says, laughing. I just jump in. There's no time to think of anything, Humphrey chimes in. We have a whole apparatus dedicated to keeping the poor man healthy, well-fed, well-hydrated, and just him. All of our cast, because making a TV show is a grueling schedule, he adds. I'm in awe. The Lincoln Lawyers Season 4 picks up after Season 3, cliffhanger. Even after multiple seasons of The Lincoln Lawyer under their belt, Humphrey and Garcia Rufo are still learning new things and rolling with the punches. It's always a challenge with a TV series you're making for budget. You're trying to make it look as great as it can look, and we're always pushing the envelope, Humphrey says. The showrunner, who directed the Season 3 finale and the first 2 episodes of Season 4, said, this new batch of 10 episodes is the most emotional season we've ever done. After a cruel cliffhanger in Season 3, we pick up right as Mickey is pulled over by a traffic cop for a missing license plate. And instead of arresting, when the cop finds a dead body in the trunk of his power blue 1963 Lincoln Continental, nothing happens. Season 4 revolves around Mickey's fight to defend himself and his reputation in and out of prison after being accused of murder he didn't commit. In court, Mickey grasps at straws, trying to clear his name, and in jail, the usually calm, cool, and collected attorney is struggling to stay sane. It's also the most emotional season between our characters, Humphrey adds. Emotion is kind of our secret weapon. Emotion and humor are our 2 secret weapons, and this season has plenty of emotion. The new season also features many tense in-court moments with Mickey's nemesis, Dana, a close call and surprise season finale visit from How I Met Your Mother star Kobe Smulders, and the return of a familiar face. Then there's Campbell's emotional return. After the Season 2 finale of The Lincoln Lawyer, fans learned that Campbell's Maggie was set to exit the show after her character takes a new job. Now, she's back, and the roles are reversed. One of the big emotional plot beats of the season is that, yes, Maggie comes back not just as his ex-wife, not just somebody who's in Mickey's life, but actually ends up representing him, Humphrey says. I love her, not just her as a person, but as an actress, Garcia Rufo says of Campbell. She brings so much warmth, and I think people love the relationship between Mickey and Maggie. They're always like, when are they going to get together? And we love that. I love having her back on set. Since the Lincoln Lawyer book series by Michael Connelly was adapted for television, the women surrounding Mickey, mostly loyal love interests, ex-wives, his daughter, and quirky overbearing mother have been at the heart of the show. Do you have anything else? So they've been at the heart of things, this overbearing mother. One of my favorite things about the show is that Mickey is surrounded by a lot of strong women, and they drive him crazy. But he couldn't live without them. Ted Humphrey on bringing Michael Connelly's novels to life. How's that go? Humphrey says that collaborating with author Connelly on the book-to-screen process was seamless. Quote, "That's daunting at first to work with the novelist," he said. "There's a long history of novelists not necessarily appreciating what Hollywood does to their work, but Michael is not like that at all. The author loves it when we change things on the show. He's the first person to say, 'Hey, let's do this,' or 'I don't like how this was in the book.' So that's really exciting," Humphrey adds. What's the future of the Lincoln Lawyer? I don't know. That's what we're necessarily going to do every book. And we do have plans for how to branch the show off just to keep telling stories in the world with these characters, Humphrey adds. As long as people want to watch the show, we love making the show. He knows where he wants it to go. It's just easier as an actor when you have somebody point you in the right direction, especially in a series where there are so many things happening. He knows the characters, the actor adds, he just brings his calmness. Lincoln Lawyer, you think you're going to check it out?
Yes, I read all the books. In fact, I've done several for radio reading here.
Have you?
Yeah, the
Okay.
Lincoln Lawyer books. This last article is titled "Dracula is Aged, Not Long in the Tooth." Vampires have a long history in Hollywood, but there's only one that really counts: Dracula. The Batman before Batman, and the kind of dude who teaches Edward Cullen of Twilight a thing or two about dangerous seduction. The Prince of Darkness has been the most prominent bloodsucker in cinema history since Bela Lugosi sauntered on screen in 1931's Dracula. The latest incarnation of Bram Stoker's 1897 literary villain, a Transylvanian nobleman who uses good manners and style to entice potential victims, is played by Caleb Landry Jones in director Luke Benson's action horror romance Dracula. It's playing in theaters now. Here are some of the most fantastic Dracula players on the silver screen. Adam Sandler's in Hotel Transylvania in 2012. Sure, Sandler's animated Drac is pretty funny and nicer than many of the other guys. Listening, fostered an overprotective streak when it comes to his daughter Mavis. He'd rather not leave his hotel unless he has to. Though Sandler's 3 hotel movies give this joyous, grumpy dude a lot to do, from falling in love to getting used to having a human son-in-law. And there's Caleb Landry Jones in Dracula from this year. Jones takes on Drac as several different looks, from a gore-soaked war prince to 400-year-old wizened creeper to a pretty dapper guy in top hat. Having his fill of human blood will do that for a man. And the most famous one of all is Bela Lugosi from 1931. Everything has made the character cool began with Lugosi. The slick-back hair, thick Eastern European accent, and flair for capes set the Ghoul's signature aesthetics for years to come. Yet the actor's magnetism and calm demeanor pull us in where he utters such lines as, "Listen to them, children of the night, what music they make." You've been listening or reading of USA Today for the 9th day of February. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been Tom Scanlon and
Tom Travers.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio Reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dashes tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dashes tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dashes tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,